Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Feliz Navidad. Whatever you might celebrate this time of the year, I hope it rocks. This, of course, is the Fortress of Rock. I am the Maestro Kevin Crane, your jolly host for the festivities here on December the 22nd, 2023. Last episode before Christmas. Hence and ergo all the well wishes for everybody out there. You, your family, the kids. But time marches on, and so does rock and roll. Just because it's the holiday season doesn't mean we don't have rock and roll headlines to discuss, new music to review. So let's get into it, shall we? As always, segment one is News of the World, our tribute to the late, great Freddie Mercury and his band Queen. Unfortunately, I will forewarn you, not a lot of good news, but what else do we expect in this day and age? Even in the world of music, the news is mostly bad. Let's start off. Let's get this out of the way right away. Got bad news, couple little bad news items involving Motley Crue. One, of course, much worse than the other. First up, Motley Crue, of course, the new lineup featuring John 5. They were supposed to have a big event in the greater Palm Springs area called Crue Year's Eve, but they unfortunately have had to cancel that, will not reschedule it. Of course, when it's called Crue Year's Eve, you really can't reschedule it. Kind of one of those things where you've boxed yourself into a corner. So they put out a brief statement saying that trying to get this event together in a very short time frame just didn't work. And of course, they passed along the obligatory apologies and we will see you next year. Now, of course, the worst, much worse news for Motley Crue, and we've kind of touched on this over the last couple of years since I started this podcast, and I get dragged into politics and I get dragged into social issues, and I don't like it because this is supposed to be a celebration of music and not a scandalous rag dishing dirt on all our rock stars that we know and love, or sometimes hate. Roger Waters comes to mind there. But yeah, we got a lot here to discuss this week that is not good, that is frankly very ugly. So one last warning, I always try to make these episodes as clean as possible so that the younger generation can get off their phones, get off their video games, and enjoy sitting down maybe with you and listening to and discussing these music topics every week. But again, sometimes it gets a little ugly, so I will do the best I can here to not get too graphic. But of course, Tommy Lee. We know about Tommy Lee's history, and it's not necessarily a great history off the stage. Tommy Lee has been accused of a 2003 sexual assault in a new lawsuit that took place on a helicopter. The pilot, you can assume, in this case, you'd be making, in my opinion, a correct assumption. The pilot, of course, complicit in this, and supposedly this particular lawsuit is not the only time this helicopter type situation occurred involving Tommy Lee and this pilot. Now, again, I am not getting into details on this. If you want to search out the details, I know ultimateclassicrock.com gets a little more in depth on this. But again, be forewarned, some of the language is a little bit dark and graphic. Now, the part of this that I always wonder about, and again, I am all for the victims. I have always been for the victims of any type of crime. Very, very rarely does somebody ask for it. And I'm not saying that is the case here at all. But again, we see this time and time and time again. And we're going to discuss it more here in just a couple of minutes with another lawsuit. This was a 2003 incident. I wonder, and again, a legal expert might be able to explain it better. I'm sure a psychiatrist will try to explain it away as trauma or denial or shame. But again, I am an advocate, as we all should be, for the victims, because it always seems like the criminals get more focus from the media than the victims. But why does it take 20 years for this to get processed, to get put forward, to start the legal proceedings? I don't understand it. And again, you can throw all the psychobabble mumbo jumbo at me you want. And maybe it's a societal issue. If you have been assaulted, if you have been sexually abused, get help immediately. I'm sorry, don't wait 20 years. It unfortunately hurts the credibility of the claim. It does. Whether it 100% happened or not, just the fact that it took 20 years to get to this point. And yes, I know the wheels of justice, the legal system moves very, very slowly. But come on, 20 years. So we will see what happens with Tommy Lee and how that impacts the future of Motley Crue. Now, I mentioned another lawsuit. And this one, well, the last one, the only issue I have with it, again, is the timing. And again, it's very convenient. 20 years, it could be a situation where that was the last day or the last week or the last month to possibly file before we reach some sort of statute of limitations. And again, it undermines the credibility just a little bit, whether it's founded or not. And here's another instance, different situation in a way. We're still dealing with sexual trauma, if you want to call it that in this case. Obviously, with the Tommy Lee situation, definitely. Spencer Eldon is back. If you remember, we talked about this in the past on the Fortress of Rock, the cover of Nirvana's iconic album, the iconic cover of Nevermind. Yes, and in the words of David Byrne of Talking Heads, you see a little pee-pee. I think I can say that without labeling the podcast as explicit. You guys know the cover. I don't have to get into detail on what is on the cover of Nevermind. Well, it's a baby, a young child in the water chasing a dollar bill. It's obviously a comment on greed. It's a comment on how we are raised to chase the almighty dollar from the moment we're brought into this earth. It's very simple, very powerful message. Well, Spencer Eldon was that child on the cover. And number one, he should be blaming his parents if it has traumatized him so much. I would like to know how it has traumatized him. Again, you want to bring in the shrinks, we want to talk psychobabble, that's fine. But I just don't see how this has traumatized him. Pictures of naked children, yes. can be very disturbing and very, very, very wrong on many levels. But the child in the picture is simply in a swimming pool. But Spencer Eldon is claiming he has been psychologically damaged. And now, of course, going back to our wonderful legal system, we thought this lawsuit had gone away, but of course, let's burn up the taxpayers' money and appeal, 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 and appeal again. And so finally, Spencer Eldon and his lawyers found a judge to revive this Nevermind cover child pornography lawsuit. And again, I don't like using that term. I think we're stretching it here. And again, detracting, taking away from the actual real victims of real crimes. Federal appeals court has revived this lawsuit so it can proceed or at least go back for review to the judge, to the court that dismissed it. The case that will not die. So we'll be talking more about Spencer Eldon and Nirvana and Nevermind, I'm sure, in 2024. Now we have, unfortunately, a handful of significant deaths in the world of music to bring up. First and foremost, he is called by many, called by Tom Petty, in fact, the last DJ. The great Jim Ladd passed away here in the last week or so. Not only an inspiration for that Tom Petty album, also, in a way, appeared on Roger Waters' Radio Chaos, I believe it was. You guys will have to forgive me. I try to delve into Roger Waters' career as little as possible. I've got better things to spend my time on. But Jim Ladd's voice, right up there with the likes of Wolfman Jack, Casey Kasem, instantly recognizable. And again, one of the handful, half a dozen to a dozen iconic DJs that, of course, now there are none anymore. It's all computerized. It's all beamed down from satellites. It's all pre-recorded on discs. So somebody can pop a disc in, walk away for an hour, hour and a half, play the same stinking songs over and over and over and over again without any creativity, without any connection to the audience. And it's a shame, too. Because the DJ and radio, to me, is still an extremely important part of the entertainment landscape. Whether you're in your car or you're at home. Sometimes it's nice if we still had real DJs who played a strong variety of music, if we still had that, and it's very, very rare. It can be found, but it's very, very, very rare in this day and age, where it used to be, obviously, back in the heyday of rock and roll, 60s, 70s, even into the 80s. It used to be more commonplace. Thoughts and prayers to the family and friends of the great Jim Ladd. Original AC/DC drummer Colin Burgess passed away here recently. So, of course, throw up some devil horns for the original man pounding the skins for the all-time great AC/DC. Now, I don't normally do this, mentioning family members of rock icons, but Torben Ulrich, father of course, another all-time great, all-time recognizable drummer, Metallica's Lars Ulrich. Unfortunately, his father passed away, led a very, very full life by all accounts. Almost, I believe, made it to 100, just a few years short of making it to 100. I would hope, I don't think it'll happen, but I would hope and pray and love to make it that far. So thoughts and prayers to Lars and the rest of Metallica and the extended Metallica family. Then finally, saxophone player Mars Williams. Now, if you're a fan, a really, really, really heavy-duty fan of 80s alternative new wave music, then you know who Mars Williams is. Mars Williams played saxophone for the Waitresses and for the Psychedelic Furs. All right, getting back into the negativity. I promise this is the last negative story we've got. Now, once we get to our look back in rock history, of course, there's always going to be some negatives in there. People who have left us, tragedies, that type of thing. I am going to do something very, very shocking here for this last negative story. Now, we've got a couple other better stories to wrap things up here in News of the World, but this last negative story involves Dee Snider of Twisted Sister. And Dee Snider loves to pick a fight. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. We need bulldogs. We need people in this world to pick fights when it seems like the rest of us are powerless and can't. At least Dee Snider still, even though Twisted Sister hasn't really been relevant, and I'm sorry to say that, they're still legendary. But they haven't really been relevant in a long, long time, except for an occasional appearance on a movie soundtrack. But again, Dee Snider, he's one of those people that's on the radio. He does a radio show. He's trying to keep the spirit of the DJ alive. So kudos to him for all of that. But his latest battle, as he goes after Spotify. Am I going to stick up for Spotify? To a point. And bear with me here. Now, number one, Dee Snider has a very, very, very good, very excellent point, as he recently went on a rant criticizing Spotify and CEO Daniel Ek. Now, I've always said the great thing about doing this podcast, after the fact I get to connect with you guys, talk with you guys about music, is that I get to learn things. I get to do research, find things out that I never knew about in the history of rock and roll, past, present, and even a little bit into the future. So obviously, if you know anything about streaming when it comes to music, the artists are getting ripped off. And you can't debate it. You cannot debate it. The streaming service model does not pay the artist or artists anything. All right, we're not going to get into the weeds on this. We can all do math. God, I hope we can all do math. So we're not going to get really deep into the decimal points and these very, very small royalty rates. But depending on who you believe, and of course, we believe everything we read on the internet, right? The low end that I saw, one site, one source says that performers, that artists get roughly $2.38 per 1,000 streams. Now, I have seen multiple other sources put that number a little higher, more like $3 to $5 per 1,000 streams. But any way you want to look at it, it's not much. It's not much at all. And if you want to go compare to what Apple pays or what your favorite particular streaming service pays in royalties, go for it. We're focusing on Spotify here, obviously, because it's the most popular and because Dee Snider picked a fight with them. Now, recently, Spotify announced that they were going to change the royalty structures a little bit, saying that they were going to, over time, shift $1 billion to the more popular artists. How? Well, what they've done is they're saying that if you do not get 1,000 streams in a 12-month period, you do not get any royalties. And they take that money that would have gone to those unpopular, let's say, streams, songs, artists. They pull that money back, they dump it into a pot, into a pool, and then they redistribute that out to the more popular artists who are easily clearing 1,000 streams a year. So there's your little Schoolhouse Rock moment. You like that? Your Schoolhouse Rock moment here on the Fortress of Rock. How Spotify works. We could call it I'm Just a Streamer. Getting back to Dee Snider. So Dee Snider, of course, points out how this is next to nothing for the artists who have to spend their own hard-earned money to get recording studio time, to make good music for their fans, for Spotify, because now this is where I'm going to back Daniel Ek a little bit. And you guys have heard me talk about this in the past, so I'm going to tie this all together with a nice, neat little Christmas bow on it for you. So Dee Snider pointed out a comment that Daniel Ek made when he was responding to criticism about how little established artists are making in royalties on Spotify. And I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but you'll get the spirit of what he's saying. Daniel Ek said, well, maybe these artists will get to the point where they'll have to put out new music more than every 3 or 4 years. Now, Dee Snider's response to that was, how dare he say, make more, make more, make more. And again, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, probably taking out some curse words. Why is he treating music like cans of Coke, like we're producing cans of Coke? Here's my question for Dee Snider. Again, completely and totally agree with him that the artist, the performer should be making more money. But what is wrong with what Daniel Ek said? He did not say maybe these artists should go make more music, like put out a new song every month or two, put out a new album every 6 months. Now, they used to do that in the 60s and the 70s. But he makes an extremely valid point, Daniel Ek does, that I think you need to tell Dee Snider, hey, Dee, shut up, you're wrong on this one. You are wrong. He's not talking about manufacturing music, spitting music out like cans of Coke. He's talking about how lazy performers have gotten when it comes to putting out new music. Not all of them. We've talked about the diehards, Dave Grohl, workaholic, Miles Kennedy of Alter Bridge, and the Conspirators, workaholic. They are old school. They put out new music on a regular, consistent basis. I have no problem with Daniel Ek considering the time frame that he mentioned, 3 or 4 years. That is not unreasonable. Here's my question to Dee Snider. Dee, are you creative? Are you a creator? Aren't you supposed to be? Aren't you supposed to be a performer, an artist? Don't performers perform? Don't artists create art? Isn't that what your passion is supposed to be? Isn't that what drives you? Isn't that what pushed you to be what you are today? So why is Daniel Ek wrong to think that these performers would want to put out a new album, let's say, for example, every 3 or 4 years? He's criticizing that. He's saying, hey, implying, how about you put one out every couple years? Is that too much to ask? And I'm 100% behind him on this. Dee Snider's wrong. He is not asking for cookie cutter, mass produced work. He is asking creators, artists, performers to actually perform and create. Not on demand, but every couple of years, put out a new album. Is that so wrong to ask, to expect? I don't think so. In fact, I will go so far as to say Dee Snider's cheating his fans. While he's sitting there complaining about Spotify, D, get in the studio. Oh my God, you've got to pay money to get studio time. Poor Dee Snider. You're supposed to be a creator. Create, D, create. And if you don't want to, if you're going to complain about it, then give it up. Take up gardening. Go become a carpenter, a bricklayer. Do something else. See what it's like to actually have to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week and constantly do cookie cutter work over and over and over again. And then maybe you'll rethink the whole cans of Coke statement a little bit. And again, I'm 100% behind Dee Snider about the rate of royalties for artists, but he is completely off base, 110% wrong to criticize Daniel Ek for wanting a new album more than every 3 or 4 years. Because again, if you are a creative type, that is what you do. You make music, you write, you act, you direct film, whatever the gig might be. It makes me so mad that these talented, blessed, talented people whine and cry about having to actually create and make art. That's what you're supposed to do. You were blessed with a gift. Do it. I wish I could do it. I'm ranting on a podcast. I've always wanted to write. It's extremely hard. I know it is. I've tried it. It is unbelievably hard. Especially when you have an accountant's brain like I do. An accountant's brain does not work when it comes to writing or making music. It just doesn't. There are rare exceptions, of course, but I know it's hard. But again, you've already proven you can do it. Get out there and do it again, because I got news for you. An author who doesn't write a book for 15, 20 years is not an author anymore. Okay, my little rant is over. Sorry, never thought I'd be picking a fight with Dee Snider. God knows that's a tough fight to win, but partially right. He is partially right. But the obvious point we all knew he was right about was the royalty rates suck on Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening to your free music. Yes, with ads. Suck it up. Deal with it. But he's completely wrong to criticize Spotify's CEO for asking for more music than every 3 or 4 years. I don't think that's out of bounds at all. In fact, I think, in a way, Daniel Ek speaking for the fans and saying, hey, maybe your fans would like to hear some new music from you once in a blue moon, maybe not once every decade. And they don't want to hear about, oh my gosh, we have to pay for studio time. Oh my goodness. I promise I'm done. But I just never thought Dee Snider would end up being a big whiny baby like this. All right. Did you enjoy, we reviewed it here recently, did you enjoy the brand new, quote unquote, new final song from the Beatles, Now and Then? I thought it was good. You guys know we reviewed it. I thought it was solid. I thought it was a very, very, very good Beatles song. Not a classic, not great, but good. And I wasn't offended at the use of AI to help bring all the parts together, since two of the four Beatles are no longer with us. Didn't bother me. Well, now you figured this was going to become a trend, especially after the success of Now and Then. We're already hearing from Eddie Kramer, who was one of the 3 or 4 people in charge of the Jimi Hendrix Vault, the Jimi Hendrix Archives, a group called the Experience Hendrix Team. Eddie Kramer says that they are looking into doing the same thing that the Beatles camp did with Now and Then, with some old Jimi Hendrix snippets, pieces, vocals that have never been heard before. And like I said, this is going to become a trend. I would just say you better walk very, 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 very carefully. You better get the approval of everybody you need to, and you better not overstep your bounds. You better not have vocals on there saying it's Jimi Hendrix when it's not Jimi Hendrix. And of course, you know we're going to revisit this down the road. It's not going away anytime soon, kids. All right, so let's wrap things up here. We're not in segment 4 yet. A couple Van Halen tidbits to finish off News of the World. I will dispute this. I've already gotten into it in the ether, in the cloud, here in the podcast realm with Dee Snider. Now, initially when I heard this story, I was very happy, and I'm still happy about it. Guitar World has named their best riffs, best guitar riffs of 2023. And number 1 on the list, Wolfgang Van Halen. So you can tell right away why I'd be happy. Very, very happy for Wolfgang Van Halen, for Mammoth, WVH. Wolfgang Van Halen beat out Kirk Hammett of Metallica and Jacob Kiszka of Greta Van Fleet for top honors on the list. Here's where I have a dispute. Right artist, wrong song. And when I say right artist, I mean right artist. The song Right, leadoff track on Mammoth 2, was the one that won Best Guitar Riff for Wolfie. And something, when I read this article initially, again, I was very, very happy. Yay, Wolfie, rock on, dude. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't seem to recall the guitar riff on that song being all that memorable. There were better songs with better guitar. Take a Bow, of course. That should have been the one, because that's the one with the spooky, eerie guitar solo. And again, I know we're talking riff versus solo, but that's the one that sounds just so spooky, eerily like his father. But even if you want to go to the best and the biggest song on that album, Another Celebration at the End of the World, I don't understand. I listened to Right after I read this article, and I still don't understand where the great guitar riff in the song is. It's a great song, but not because of any spectacular guitar riff. So, we can agree to disagree on that, me and Guitar World. Kirk Hammett, of course, of Metallica, for the title track, he was nominated for 72 Seasons. And then Jacob Kiszka of Greta Van Fleet, the song The Falling Sky, were the runners-up to Wolfgang Van Halen. Then finally, we've been talking a lot about David Lee Roth here recently. He's been putting out seemingly a new song every week or two. More on that coming up later. A little bit of foreshadowing for you. However, if you have not been able to get enough of a fix of Diamond Dave, if you still want more of David Lee Roth, there is a brand new book coming out on New Year's Day. You can pre-order it and actually get it a little bit early, if you hurry, through the Van Halen store. But officially out January the 1st, 2024, the DLR book, How David Lee Roth Changed the World, written by Darren Paltrowitz. Always up for a good rock and roll book. So again, if you're a Van Halen fan like me, check out the DLR book, How David Lee Roth Changed the World, out here in just about 10 days. So that's going to do it for segment 1. Went a little bit long. I apologize. Had to break down all that Spotify gook, all those numbers, those statistics, those figures. So it went a little bit longer. That's good. It's all fine. Holiday weekend. Hopefully you guys are taking it easy. Don't have to work too hard. As most Americans, hopefully, thankfully, get a little bit of a break here from Christmas on through to New Year's. Next up, segment 2, we're going to mix the holiday spirit with new music. In Breakdown, we've got some new holiday tunes, new Christmas tunes to discuss, and some just regular new rock and roll. Another controversial take or two coming up in Breakdown. I'll be back in 1 minute. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Fortress of Rock podcast with me, the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Of course, that was segment 1, the news of the world, our tribute to Freddie Mercury and Queen, where we look back at the past week in rock and roll and all the news and all the controversies that you deserve to know about. Next up is the heart of the show, the meat and potatoes, Breakdown, where we are going to review all the new songs, all the new albums, all the new concert tours, the shows that I've seen personally. Stay tuned for that. Of course, we're now available on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Hang out, kids. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Fortress of Rock. Here in the holiday season, of course, we wish you nothing but the best. You, your family, your friends, all the love in the world to everybody out there who listens to the Fortress of Rock. Merry Christmas and happy holidays, of course. We will have another episode drop before the end of 2023. And that, of course, fittingly, will be our recap of the best of 2023 albums, songs, and concerts, along with the usual stuff, the news, the traveling back in time, the reviews of new music. We're just going to work it in there, kids. Just like the last couple years, we'll figure out a way. But for now, segment 2 here on December the 22nd is Breakdown, our tribute to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Got some new Christmas music, some older Christmas music, and a couple new songs, one of which I'm sure will upset, my review will upset, and throw a bunch of very, very touchy music critics, if they happen to be listening, into a tizzy. But let's start off with the holiday stuff, shall we? I always like it when this time of year I can review a new Christmas CD. And luckily we've got a lot of classic rock artists who put out Christmas albums every year. Last year we had Chris Isaak. This year, of course, Mark Tremonti, guitarist, vocalist for Alter Bridge, his own band Tremonti, and then, of course, guitarist for Creed. Going back out on the road, reunited in 2024. We'll forgive him for that. The rest of the stuff, fantastic. All in on Tremonti, all in on Alter Bridge, of course. Now, Mark Tremonti has a great, great voice. Probably better than Scott Stapp. Now, I won't go as far as to say it's better than Miles Kennedy, but Mark Tremonti's Merry Christmas, Classics Old and New, just came out a few months ago. Mark Tremonti, of course, this is his second solo album, not counting the band, his band Tremonti, but he did a cover of Frank Sinatra, an album of covers of Frank Sinatra songs, Old Blue Eyes. And his voice, if you happen to listen to this album, the Christmas album, or go back and listen to the Frank Sinatra album, his voice is unbelievably suited to do those types of covers. And the good thing is, this side project work he does, the money goes to charity. So, of course, great that in this time of the year, Mark Tremonti is doing his part, not whining about Spotify royalties, putting out music. And he's another one. He's the antithesis of Dee Snider. Mark Tremonti's putting music out along with Alter Bridge or Tremonti or Creed, putting out music every year, basically. So, we've got 10 songs here on Merry Christmas Classics, Old and New. Now, we won't burn up a lot of time on this because most of these songs are traditional songs that we all know by heart. So it's all going to be about how does he interpret the songs? How are they produced? Let's get into it. So we start off with a couple of traditional songs. One very, very good. One horribly and terribly arranged and produced. The leadoff track on Merry Christmas Classics Old and New is The Most Wonderful Time of the Year. They keep it simple. The old KISS rule. Keep it simple, stupid. Nice traditional arrangement. Of course, again, Mark Tremonti's voice, beautifully suited for this type of music. Great way to start off the album. Then we get Jingle Bells. How do you screw up Jingle Bells? Well, we'll have to ask Mark Tremonti and the producers and the engineers of this album, because they find a way to make the most overblown, cheesy version of Jingle Bells ever. Now, again, the song itself, all of these Christmas songs are cheesy, so in that sense, it's not abysmal, but you got to listen to it. And some of you might like it. This particular arrangement, I did not like at all. Then we get back to more traditional arrangements, a little bit of saxophone for the Christmas song. Very, very good. And then we have the one original. Yes, we get an original song here before we get back into the Christmas covers. Mark Tremonti's original Christmas song is called Christmas Morning. Saxophone, strings. Let's put it this way. It doesn't stand out, but that's not a bad thing. It fits right in, fits nicely in with the rest of these Christmas classics, which should be taken as a compliment. It's a fine song. Very, very good song. Then we get to track 5, The First Noel. Again, a nice traditional arrangement, maybe a bit too much with the orchestration, maybe a little bit over the top. Santa Claus is Coming to Town, track 6. Again, we're still sticking here with the traditional arrangements, which is great. Track 7, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. You got some piano, some saxophone, kind of subdued here, as opposed to what we just discussed a couple songs back with The First Noel. Sometimes less is more. And that works here as Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, one of the better songs on the album. And again, I know we're talking for the most part about old classics. It's again all about how does Tremonti and his team handle these songs individually. Track 8 is Let It Snow. Nice piano. Very, very good arrangement. Then we get back into overdoing things, overcooking things a bit. The turkey's burnt a little bit here. The ham's a little bit chewy on Oh Holy Night, track 9. And then finally, this one is interesting. This is not your well-known, decades-old traditional Christmas song. This Christmas, doing a little research, of course, I believe this one emanates from the 70s. And you can tell because it's a little funky, believe it or not, a little funky with some horns and the piano. I love this one. I love this one. Nice little curveball here where we're doing a cover song, but it's not one of those old Bing Crosby classics, Rat Pack classics. So this was a nice little change of pace to end the album. So again, we got our 10 songs here on Merry Christmas Classics Old and New. Is this the best Christmas album I've ever heard? No. No, it's not. I'm sorry, Mark. As much as I love Mark Tremonti, I can't say this is up there in the upper echelon, the upper reaches of some of the greatest Christmas albums. I have a very small, limited Christmas collection, maybe about a dozen CDs, but you've got, again, Chris Isaak's Christmas album from last year was great. His first Christmas album was great. I've got Christmas with the Rat Pack. I've got 80s Christmas, I believe VH1, 80s Christmas. I've got, was it a Monster Christmas, Hair Metal Christmas, whatever you want to call it. Those are all far and away better than Merry Christmas Classics Old and New. Now, on the flip side, definitely a nice CD to pop in if you just want the traditional stuff. This fits the bill. So while I can't really recommend Mark Tremonti's new Christmas album, I would say it's still fine to flip on Spotify. Oh, there's Spotify again. Maybe you got one of those fireplace videos or an actual fireplace. That seems to me to be the perfect mix. Put on the fireplace, put this on, cozy up with your dog, your cat, your loved one, your kids. Read a Christmas book. In the traditional sense, this is a fine, fine album. I just can't recommend it. Again, I have many other Christmas albums that I would tend to defer to over this one. Now, we're not done with Christmas yet. I dug up, and I've been teasing this for a couple months. I dug up a 15-year-old Christmas song that somehow eluded my grasp, slipped through my fingers, something I never knew existed. And it's impossible to believe this when we consider the fact that it involves the Hives, one of my favorite bands. 15 years ago, the Hives got together with, believe it or not, Cyndi Lauper to record a song called A Christmas Duel. Now, the Hives are not the most politically correct band out there. So I will just put a warning out there to everybody. Do not listen to A Christmas Duel with the kids, because there's very blatant sexual innuendo, very, very harsh language. Now, my problems with A Christmas Duel, as I review it here on the Fortress of Rock, aren't the idea of the song. I'm all for controversial, politically incorrect songs, especially when it comes to screwing with time-honored traditions. That's when it's the most fun. When you take something that 90% of the population holds near and dear, and they cherish it, and they say, don't mess with it, don't screw around with it, and then somebody screws around with it. So basically, the premise of A Christmas Duel is an unhappy couple talking about what's looking like it could be a miserable Christmas, and they start hurling insults back and forth, talking about, well, I had relations with this person in your family. Well, I did this person in your family, and back and forth. To me, that's fun. Sorry. Again, blowing up expectations, doing a complete 180. Now, in terms of the song itself, I did not like Cyndi Lauper's part in this. I don't think the duet works. I don't think Pelle Almquist, the lead singer of the Hives, I don't think that whole dynamic with Cyndi Lauper, their voices don't work well together. And it does not help that Cyndi Lauper basically screams and screeches her part for most of this song. So it's hard to read her. You can read the lyrics. It's hard to understand the lyrics if you're just trying to listen to the song. I actually had to put on the lyrics again on Spotify so I could see what she was saying. Now, I will say this is better than the traditional stuff we just talked about with Mark Tremonti. This is more fun for me. And again, I have a soft spot in my heart for the Hives. They can pretty much do no wrong when it comes to the Maestro. That being said, this is not one of their stronger efforts. Again, I'm laying a lot of the blame on Cyndi Lauper, which might be a little unfair, but it's still a fun Christmas song. And an NC-17 Christmas song, but a fun Christmas song nonetheless. Maybe hard R. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say NC-17. Maybe a hard R. Definitely not PG-13. So I will recommend the adults out there check out A Christmas Duel, featuring the Hives and Cyndi Lauper. All right, let's leave the holiday stuff behind. Let's move into the current straight on, straight ahead rock and roll. Sebastian Bach. You guys know I love Sebastian Bach. I think he's awesome. I think he's fantastic. It's still a shame to me. This is one of those soapboxes that I always seem to get on every couple of weeks about how bands will split up, whether it's the lead singer's ego, whether it's the other band members want more of the spotlight. Many examples out there. Many examples, of course, Van Halen, most prominently among them, The Police, and of course, Skid Row. Skid Row only got through 3 fully formed, fleshed out, official studio albums before the friction was too much. They parted ways. And if you look at it, both sides have really kind of struggled over the past few decades. Sebastian Bach went much harder, much heavier, doing a lot of melt your face off heavy metal, which is fine, and some of it was really good, but you kind of missed a little bit more of a melodic sound from him. I Remember You, 18 and Life, of course. He doesn't seem like he wants to go back to those days. Skid Row, running through lead singers. Finally looks like they might have found the right guy. Of course, their last album, The Gang's All Here, one of the best albums of 2022. And we've already talked about the fact next week is the best of 2023. And now maybe this new song from Sebastian Bach, What Do I Got to Lose? Just like Skid Row, seems like they've turned a corner and they've finally found their way back to where they should be. Maybe What Do I Got to Lose signals the exact same thing for Sebastian Bach. He tones it down. I don't think he's losing any bit of his hard rock credibility with this. This is not a ballad. This is not a mid-tempo song. This is a straight-on rocker, but it's well written. It's got a little bit of a melody to it, a little bit of a catchy riff and chorus where you kind of hear a little bit of that old school Skid Row in there. Now, it's going to be very, very tough for either side to ever reach the heights, in my opinion, of any of the 3 albums. Even Subhuman Race, to me, is phenomenal. But of course, Slave to the Grind is an all-time classic. And the debut album, Skid Row, is a hair metal model for bands to look back in a time capsule. What were the best hair metal bands, the best hair metal albums? And I know a lot of people don't like to classify Skid Row as hair metal. They were at the tail end of the genre, but they did it better than almost anybody else. And so that first album, that debut album, before they went heavier and harder with Slave to the Grind, that debut album has got to be up there, if not in the top 5, top 10 of the best hair metal albums of that genre. So as you can tell, I loved What Do I Got to Lose? Highly recommend it. In fact, this particular song is my number 1 recommendation for the week. which leaves us with the song that I thought coming in was going to be my number one recommendation for the week, and that should immediately set off your rock and roll bells and whistles, the sirens going off. Unbelievably highly disappointed in Guns N' Roses' The General. Now, I had heard speculation about this mythical track, supposedly an epic track. Again, I might have gotten bad information. This was one that they couldn't wait to put out. They couldn't wait to get Slash and Duff into the fold on this, rework it, tweak it. And I had heard it was like an epic, like a November Rain, a Coma type song, 6, 7, 8 minutes long, sprawling epic. And then I hear the finished product. They finally put out the finished product here within the last few weeks. Doesn't even make it to 5 minutes. It is bizarre. It is weird. It is creepy. It is disturbing. The lyrics sound like Axl's taking on the persona of an abused child. And it's just, it never really gets much better from there. Again, it's disturbing, it's creepy, it is not an enjoyable listen at all. You get a little bit of wah-wah guitar in there from Slash, but otherwise his presence isn't really felt. This reminds me a lot of the old Chinese Democracy, self-indulgent Axl Rose. And that's disappointing because some of the stuff we've gotten here over the last couple years, as they've let out dribs here, drabs there, some of the stuff they've been putting out, and yes, most of it is remnants of that long Chinese Democracy era where it was Axl Rose and a bunch of his studio musician buddies, Buckethead, among others. Very, very disappointed in The General. Cannot recommend it. I would actually say in this case, stay away. Now, of course, I say that, and a lot of you are going to go, oh, I got to listen to this. Because we all love a challenge. We all love it when somebody says, oh, but you won't like it. I thought it was good, but you won't like it. We can't stand it when somebody else tells us we won't like something. It's a lot different from when somebody says, you'll like this. I liked it. You'll like it too. Then we're all in. Then we're like, hey, my buddy, my brother, my sister recommended this. I can't wait to listen to it. Can't wait to try it. Can't wait to watch it. But when somebody says, I like this, but you won't, then we kind of go, wait a minute. Who are you to tell me what I like and what I don't like? So go ahead. If you want to listen to it, you go right ahead. And I would love to hear feedback from those of you who actually think The General is a good song. And I would love an explanation as to why. Because it is a train wreck. It is terrible. Overhyped, overblown, overrated. And with that sunny, cheery, happy note, we're shutting down Breakdown for the week. But we're only halfway home. In fact, we're leaving home. Doc Brown is firing up the rock and roll DeLorean, getting it up to 1.21 gigawatts so we can go back in time and look back at birthdays, anniversaries, moments in rock history. I Want to Go Back is just a short minute away. So hang out, kids. Doc Brown and I will be right back. All right, now that we've looked at the current state of music in our breakdown segment, it is time to climb into the DeLorean and travel back in time to look back at moments in rock and roll history, birthdays, deaths, anniversaries of song and album releases. It is time for I Wanna Go Back, our tribute to Eddie Money. Stay tuned. And as always, we're on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public, anywhere where you listen to your favorite podcasts. All right, strapped into the rock and roll DeLorean, heading back through the rock and roll time stream for the second to last time here in 2023. I'm the Maestro Kevin Crane, along with Doc Brown. It is time for I Wanna Go Back, our tribute to Eddie Money, the late great Eddie Money, as we look back at classic moments in rock and roll history, great album release anniversaries, birthdays, you name it. We talk about it here in segment 3. But first, got to take care of business, kids. Always got to take care of business. Now, we've talked a lot about Spotify in this episode, and we're going to bring them up again because you got to find us somewhere. You have found us somewhere. Otherwise, how could you be listening, right? But while some younger people are having issues getting frustrated with menus that are too complicated and too long with too much stuff on them, us older people love choices. We love choices. I do. I'd rather choose from 50 things than 5 things. And you have choices. You can listen to the Fortress of Rock on whatever platform you choose among the following: Spotify, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. And of course, we have a Facebook page. We would love to have you check out the Facebook page. A couple fun things happen each and every weekend, in addition to a new episode of the podcast dropping. Friday nights are always the start of the Weekend Rock Project. We couldn't really, we've been doing the Weekend Rock Project, I think, longer than this podcast. So it takes a lot when it comes to coming up with new ideas for the Weekend Rock Project. It's not like the podcast where there's new stories, new music, new items to discuss that pop up in the world each and every week. The Weekend Rock Project is a little bit more limiting. But we're still pulling out some really interesting, good topics, some good ideas to bounce off of you, some fun things to bounce off of you each and every Friday night this week. Get out your little fitness watch because it's time to take some steps. Do your steps for the week. Do your steps for the day. We are looking for your favorite rock songs with the word step, ladder, or stair in the title. Of course, you can use the plural versions if you want. Again, step, ladder, stair. Get those knees up. Come on. Start working off that fat. This would have especially been more appropriate for a couple weeks from now or after Thanksgiving. But we've already burned up over the last few years our Christmas theme. I know you're thinking, why couldn't you do Christmas this weekend? Because we've already used it. So we always try to put out something new and different. No repeats. We're like Metallica. No repeat weekends. Then Sunday, Sunday is New Music Sunday. We're on the Fortress of Rock Facebook page. We post a music video link to YouTube, a brand new video, a brand new song, because we all need new music. We talk about it each and every week here in the breakdown segment. And then, of course, if you prefer Facebook, jump on our page there, and we'll give you a new song every Sunday afternoon. Not 100% sure yet what I'm going to put out there. I don't know if I really want to subject all of you to the general. I don't think I've used that yet. I might go holiday. I might throw a Mark Tremonti Christmas video out there to keep in the spirit of this weekend as we go through Christmas Eve on Sunday into Christmas Day on Monday. We'll see. Always good to keep you guys in suspense. Now, of course, a lot of the ideas, a lot of the stories that I discuss, especially in segment 1, News of the World, and segment 3 here. And I want to go back. Got to have some help. Do some research. But you always have sources. When you do a term paper, an essay, you have to list your sources. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm treating this podcast at this moment like a term paper. So I'm listing as my sources each and every week, my main sources, ultimateclassicrock.com, the Van Halen News Desk, and thisdayinmusic.com. All right, let's start off with birthdays. Not a ton of birthdays, but a couple very significant birthdays. Here on December the 22nd. Of course, we start off with 2 of the 3 Bee Gees who have left us, twins. Born on this day, December the 22nd in 1949, Robin and Maurice Gibb. And I'm not going to jump into my love of disco. I've talked about it, and at some point I'll talk about it again. But some people laugh at the Bee Gees. I don't. Saturday Night Fever, the soundtrack, was one of the formative albums of my early years. So bittersweet. Happy birthday, of course, because they're both gone from this earthly realm. 2/3 of the Bee Gees, Robin and Maurice Gibb, born on this day in 1949. Now, a man who is still with us, still rocking it out. Rick Nielsen, guitarist for Cheap Trick, born on December the 22nd, 1948. And Cheap Trick has weathered the storm all the way from the 70s through the 80s, the down times in the grunge era, into the 2000s, and they are still out there. They're putting out new music every couple years. Okay, Dee Snider, what's your excuse? Cheap Trick still puts out new music. And of course, Cheap Trick will be one of the 3 supporting acts, opening acts, but it's ridiculous to think of Heart, Steve Miller Band, and Cheap Trick as opening acts for the big Def Leppard and Journey stadium tour coming in 2024. Happy birthday to Rick Nielsen. And then, House of the Rising Sun. What a great, great song. The definitive version, of course, done by the Animals. But if you're like me, you get some time, you delve into some of these groups, some of these artists that you never really listened to beyond the songs you heard on the radio. And the Animals have got some other really, really good tunes, some really good stuff. Born on this day, December the 22nd, in 1944, the drummer for the Animals, Barry Jenkins. All right, so let's move on to anniversaries here on the Fortress of Rock, December the 22nd. And unfortunately, I know the Gibb brothers, if that wasn't enough, talking about how they're no longer with us on their birthdays. We got to start off here with a lot of death. And it's usually the way it is, unfortunately, when we do the anniversary part of I Want to Go Back. Of course, we go from present day back. So we'll start off in 2020, December the 22nd, 2020. Leslie West passed away, the leader of Mountain. And of course, everybody should know Mississippi Queen, one of those unbelievable classic rock songs from the late 60s, early 70s. And Leslie West, of course, was the front man for Mountain. Now we go back to December the 22nd of 2014. Now, this guy was never my cup of tea. I'll say this right now. And if there's anybody out there who's going to tell you they love everybody and everything and every performer ever in rock and roll, then they're lying to you. And you guys know who I like and who I don't like. This one might be a first, though, where I have not really talked about Joe Cocker. The tics, the eccentricities, the spasms, the weird way he performed just didn't do it for me. And again, you have your opinion, I have mine. A lot of you out there probably love Neil Young and love Bob Dylan. I just don't. And I don't really care for Joe Cocker. There's not really that many songs out that he put out there that I really enjoyed. She Came In Through the Bathroom Window. Didn't he do that version? I mean, a lot of his stuff was cover songs. What You Are So Beautiful. Okay, I get it. Oh, he's putting so much effort. Listen to the voice crack and the emotion. Okay, great. Whatever. Sometimes that works for me, sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time it doesn't. It's like Michael Jackson at the end of She's Out of My Life and he's breaking down. I'm like, oh, great. You ruined the song. Sorry, but I don't like that. That's acting. Save that for the big screen. Save that for the movies or a TV show. I don't need that necessarily in my recorded music. So if you love Joe Cocker, good for you. Unfortunately, on this day in 2014, he passed away. And of course, probably the most notable part of his career was when he was on Saturday Night Live and John Belushi sat up there on the stage next to him imitating him. Now that's rock and roll. December the 22nd, 2010. What they call the zebra crossing at Abbey Road, overseas, over the pond in the UK, got a grade 2 listed status, which of course is a way over here in America of saying it got historical status due to its, quote, cultural and historical importance, unquote. No duh. No duh. If I were to ever go overseas to Great Britain, me being who I am, I'd have to have a picture walking across Abbey Road at that crossing. I would have to. Now, could I find 3 people to go with me? Probably not. Sad, but true. Plus, I'm not much of a traveler anyway. But that would be one of those great rock and roll things to do. You know, you want to go to Graceland. You want to go down to Muscle Shoals. And then I would love to walk across the Abbey Road zebra crossing. Now, unfortunately, back to death, December the 22nd, 2002. And we talked about the Clash here recently. I'm not going to go off on that tangent. Not as, it's not out and out dislike like Joe Cocker or Neil Young or Bob Dylan, but just never really got into the Clash. But I understand the significance. I understand the appeal. I do understand why a lot of people out there love the Clash. Unfortunately, on this day in 2002, Joe Strummer of the Clash passed away. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Madonna, a couple things about Madonna, and then we're also going to revisit Motley Crue again. We talked a lot about the Crue, mostly negative, and it's going to keep on with the negative stuff. But first, let's talk Madonna. December the 22nd, 2000. Madonna married noted film director Guy Ritchie. And you know these things never last. This one lasted about 8 years. They were divorced in 2008. Personally, I love Guy Ritchie's movies. I think he's one of the better directors out there. You know, Madonna, again, kind of like the Clash. I respect what she's done. I respect what she's accomplished. She is unbelievably savvy in managing her public persona most of the time. Most of the time. Her attempts at acting have been disasters. And now, of course, she has done something to herself in terms of plastic surgery where she is unrecognizable. But to each his or her own. Now back to Motley Crue. December the 22nd, 1987. Nikki Sixx died for 2 minutes. His heart stopped beating. Had to have multiple shots of adrenaline to bring him back. Of course, yes, it was drug related. So, with all this death we've had to talk about over the last couple minutes, I guess this is a good thing, a positive thing, that Nikki Sixx, we were able to bring him back from the light at the end of the tunnel. And we get Motley Crue soldiering on. Can you imagine, though? It's just mind-boggling to me. If Nikki Sixx had died back in 1987, all of the music, all of the shows that we never would have gotten. And it still boggles my mind. Rock and roll has got to keep a lot of these men, a lot of these women going far beyond the years that they should be on this earth. Of course, we always look at Keith Richards, but the abuse, not just the long hours, days, weeks, years on the road, but the drug abuse, the alcohol abuse. Yet somehow the music keeps them alive and keeps them going. Of course, there are exceptions. But it seems like in a lot of ways, rock and rollers lead charmed lives. Some people say they make deals at the crossroads with the devil. But just something to think about as we ponder the fact that Nikki Sixx was dead for 2 minutes back in 1987 on this day. More Madonna. December the 22nd, 1984. Madonna got her first number one song in the United States with, of course, Like a Virgin. Ha! I'm sorry. December the 22nd, 1979. We're going to have some fun here with this one, kids. Number one song in the U.S. back in 1979 on this day was the irritating earworm Escape, otherwise known as the Pina Colada song by Rupert Holmes. I don't despise the song, but really, the thing that I think I hate the most about this song, I mean, this is not down there at the depths of music hell, like Debbie Boone's You Light Up My Life, or Journey's Open Arms, or REO Speedwagon's Can't Fight This Feelin', or Styx's Babe. I mean, the bottom of the barrel, and the barrel is buried at the core, at the center of the earth type of depths. You can respect the lilting musical catchiness, the hook of the Pina Colada song. But the thing I always found extremely irritating was how everybody embraces this song as such a, oh, isn't this a nice little fun love song? No, the song is about a man and a woman looking to cheat on each other. Going so far as to put classified ads out in the paper. Yes, back when there were papers, newspapers, looking for somebody that they could mess around with behind their significant other's back. And oh, isn't it funny that in the end it ends up being the two getting back together again as they're both out looking for somebody different and just realizing that after listing all of the things that they like and what they were looking for in a partner, it ends up that they get back together again. And the person they really wanted was always right there in front of them. Oh my God, they're trying to cheat on each other. These are two despicable people in this song. Oh, but it's such a fun, bouncy earworm. No, it's really an insidious, awful song if you listen to the lyrics. And that's something I've always found such hypocrisy in, is the attitudes towards Rupert Holmes' Escape versus how it's actually one of the most dark, depressing songs of the rock and roll era that was a number one hit, especially. And speaking of depressing and weird, finally, to wrap up our trip through the rock and roll time stream, going all the way back to December the 22nd, 1972. Going back over the pond again to the UK. The number one song in the UK was Long-Haired Lover from Liverpool, sung by, wait for it, Little Jimmy Osmond. And there's a reason why it was Little Jimmy Osmond back in 1972, because at the time, Jimmy Osmond was 9 years and 8 months old. Yet he's singing about long-haired lover from Liverpool. And he's not even 10 years old yet? That's creepy. That's weird and that's creepy. So as Doc Brown shakes his head in disgust, he pulls the rock and roll DeLorean back into the garage here at the Fortress of Rock pulling up the drawbridge over the moat, getting ready to shut things down. But you know we're not quite done yet. One last promo break. And yes, I will somehow, some way, hopefully here over the holidays, update all the promo breaks. We've got to wrap it up and discuss what we're going to be reviewing and talking about over the next couple of weeks here, heading into 2024 on the Fortress of Rock. I'll be back in 60 seconds. I'm the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Be right back. Well, we hope you enjoyed our trip back in time, looking back at the anniversaries, the classic moments in rock and roll history. But of course, the DeLorean works both ways. So now we have to move forward. The last segment here, as always, on the Fortress of Rock with me, the Maestro Kevin Crane. Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. It's all about the future. What's coming out here in the next month or two? What songs? What albums? What concert tours? That's why we call it Wrap It Up. Thanks to the fabulous Thunderbirds. Thanks to you for hanging out. Here comes our final segment. All right, everybody, time to wrap it up here on the Fortress of Rock, December the 22nd, 2023. Went a little bit longer than normal. Extra sized, extra special gift for you this holiday season. But hope you enjoyed it. All the news items, the looks back at rock and roll history, and of course my tangents and my ranting and my raving. But we've got to look ahead. One more episode left in 2023, and then we head into 2024. Next week is the episode you have all been waiting for. It is the best of 2023 countdown. The top 5 songs, the top 5 albums, the top 5 concerts of 2023. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, we will not neglect, we will not skip out on new music or the news that happens to break over the next week in rock and roll. We will cover it all for you. We'll split up our list throughout the various segments. So best of 2023, your final 2023 Fortress of Rock, coming next Friday, December the 29th. In 2 weeks, heading into 2024, of course, we're going to end up looking back at some of the albums released later on towards the end of 2023, playing some catch-up before we start to get the new music of 2024, which will include, of course, Green Day, Blackberry Smoke, Judas Priest, among others. In 2 weeks, yes, it would have been better, given the theme of the album, to have reviewed this one right around Halloween when it came out. In 2 weeks, we're going to review Duran Duran's Danse Macabre, their black, dark, themed Halloween album that came out a few months ago. Lots of cover songs, some songs that they redid of lesser known tracks from their back catalog, and a few new ones as well. So an interesting little mixed bag. So in 2 weeks, we'll have Duran Duran for you. And in 3 weeks, we'll finally get around to the new album from The Struts. Pretty Vicious will be on the agenda in 3 weeks here on the Fortress of Rock. The Struts, I have a love-hate thing with the Struts. I admire, just like Dirty Honey. And you guys know we reviewed Dirty Honey, Can't Find the Breaks here recently. And I had my criticisms of Dirty Honey. Now, I will say this about the Struts, and it's been a recurring theme throughout this episode about artists who actually create, going all the way back to segment one and the whole Dee Snider versus Spotify thing. And part of the criticism I had of Dirty Honey here recently was they don't put out a lot of new music considering they're a newer band. And then the new music they just put out was pretty much cookie cutter, generic rock and roll. Well, at least with the Struts, I can say the Struts are one of the harder working bands out there, trying to keep rock and roll alive. You can rely on the Struts to give you a new album every couple years. So good for them. I applaud them for that. And they put out some good stuff. Solid rock and roll. I'm not the biggest fan in the world of their lead singer. A little bit too much of a Freddie Mercury copycat for my taste, but believe me, there are worse bands out there than the Struts. So we will discuss their new album, Pretty Vicious, in 3 weeks on the Fortress of Rock. Now, as far as songs, this is definitely the time of the year where we're not going to get a lot of new music. We do have a new song. The second single has been released from McMars. Again, another one of these recurring themes this week. A lot of Motley Crue. A lot of Madonna, a lot of Motley Crue, a lot of Spotify. So the second single from The Other Side of Mars is Right Side of Wrong. So we'll review that for you. That one should be next week. That should be one of the few new songs we will have for you as we, again, kind of switch off back and forth between the best of 2023 and the new stuff. Also, and it stinks that I didn't get a hold of this, didn't hear this in time for this episode. But I like to listen to these songs, listen to these albums at least 4, 5, 6 times minimum before I feel like I can give you a fair review. So next week we will do a belated Christmas review. Again, we talked here this week about Mark Tremonti and the Hives with Cyndi Lauper. David Lee Roth. Yes, another recurring theme this week. More David Lee Roth news. A brand new, from what I can tell, I have never heard this before. A brand new Christmas song that I just heard today, a few hours before taping. David Lee Roth drops Talking Christmas Blues. And I listened to it once and I loved it. I loved it. But got to listen to it more than just once to give you a fair review. So next week, we'll still be in the holiday season. We'll be in between Christmas and New Year's. So we will also, in addition to McMars, have a review of David Lee Roth's Talking Christmas Blues. Now, other songs we could end up delving into over the next few weeks. Bruce Dickinson, lead singer for Iron Maiden, has got an ambitious project, an album coming out. He's got new stuff out in terms of songs. We'll see. You guys know every once in a while, I did this with the Pretenders last year. I did this with about half of Peter Gabriel's I.O. releases. I'm not making promises. I'm just saying there's a chance. You're saying there's a chance, Maestro. And then yet another recurring theme. We've talked about Mark Tremonti a lot. And of course, one of his side projects, I call it a side project because I don't think it's nearly as good as the other work he does with Alter Bridge and with his band Tremonti. of course, Mark Tremonti started off in Creed, made his name in Creed. And of course, the troubled lead singer, Scott Stapp. Now, Scott Stapp has got new solo material out, so maybe if we get desperate enough, we'll review that for you as well. And something else will pop up. I'm sure we're due for a new Green Day song, since their new album, Saviors, is about a month away. We probably will get some new Judas Priest here at some point in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe another Blackberry Smoke release before their album comes out in February. So we'll have enough to get us through. But of course, next week, looking forward to the best of 2023, the top 5 songs, albums, and concerts. Until then, I hope you have a fantastic, wonderful Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. You do you. Because I'm the Maestro and you are who you are. Celebrate you. And of course, be close in this holiday season to your family, your friends, your loved ones. But if you happen to be on your own, love the one you're with. Merry Christmas. Next episode in 7 days. We'll be getting ready for New Year's. Can't wait to talk to you again. I'm the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Peace out.